Hi, just wanted to put a quick video together to talk about my experience trying to get Bluetooth module set up and working with my Naze32 board for iOS or the iPhone. There seems to be, a decent amount of information out there to put something together to work with an Android phone, but if you're an iPhone user, the information is definitely more scarce out there. So, I don't claim to be an expert on this, but this is just what worked for me, and hopefully I'll save some people, some time and frustration that I experienced trying to put this together. So, just to cut to the chase a little bit, in terms of what worked for me in the end. I used Red Bear Labs mini BLE Bluetooth module, and I used that with the MultiWii configurator on iTunes. And the biggest issue that I ran into was getting the Bluetooth module talking to the Naze32 board. And it's because the baud rate on the Naze or on the Bluetooth module comes set at 9600 baud, and it needs to be 115,200 to properly talk to the Naze board. So that's the biggest issue I had. I'll take you through kind of how I went about solving that issue. But basically the first thing is to buy the Red Bear BLE mini module, and this is just a hardware schematic. When you get the module, you're going to have to solder the header pins on up here. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy to do. You've got and really you only need 4 pins. You're going to use the voltage, the ground, transmit and receive pins here. And what I did was, from another suggestion and another YouTube video, is used one of the motor available motor pins on the flight controller to run a servo wire to the power and ground on the Bluetooth Mini, and I took the signal wire out of that 3-pair, and then I had to run wires from the transmit and receive to the transmit and receive, or to the receive and transmit on the Naze board. And just so you can see here, the pins that I ran the wires to are, there's a TX and RX pins right here, sort of in the middle of the board. So what you want to do is run the transmit pin on the Bluetooth board to the receive pin on the Naze board, and the receive pin on the Bluetooth board to the transmit pin on the Naze board. And that's as difficult as the wiring gets, to wire it up. So just check your polarity, make sure that that's correct. Then, as far as the app I used the MultiWii configurator, which is what this is here on the iTunes store. It's listed here for $1.99, but what it wasn't clear to me is, you download that and it's really just a read-only version. In other words, you can read the settings off your Naze board, but you can't write new settings to that board unless you buy the full version. And so first you download this $1.99 version. I thought I was downloading what I needed, and then I kind of found out afterwards I had to pay another 12 or 13 bucks to get the full version to be able to write and modify the PID settings and other settings on the Naze board. So something to keep in mind. It's not very clear, at least as far as I could tell from the instructions there. So, so let's see, a couple things. So once you get the Bluetooth board, wired up, and you get the multi-wii configurator downloaded onto your iOS device, the next thing really to do is on the multi-wii configurator app, look for the instructions. There are instructions there about how to, get the Bluetooth Mini connected and working with the Naze board. That's really the next step. That's what you need to follow. I knew, ahead of time that the Bluetooth module likely wasn't going to be at the right baud rate to be able to communicate with the Naze board, and I hadn't fully read the instructions on the multi-wii configurator, and it wasn't real clear that if I followed those instructions I would be able to do everything. In the end, I was able to get it working just from those, but I spent a lot of time trying to modify the baud rate on the, or try to figure out how to modify the baud rate on the Bluetooth module, because I couldn't get it to talk at the 9600 bauds it was set to. And I know, some of the information I found out there, there's a couple different ways to do it. You could buy an FTDI USB adapter, or there may be a couple other ways to do it, but nothing that I had handy, nothing that seemed all that easy, and I was getting a little frustrated. But anyway, in the end, if you just follow the instructions on the multi-wii configurator app, you should be able to get the Bluetooth module talking to it. There is a link in the instructions on the multi-wii configurator app to a file that you need to download. It's a .bin extension file. Mini BLE something or other .bin. It's in the instructions there. There's a link in the instructions, and the link is broken. It doesn't take you to the actual file. I ended up doing a Google search online to that file name, and I did see there's I think a multi-wii support forum out there where the developer of this multi-wii configurator app had posted the file there because somebody else was having problems. I did just send an email to the developer asking that they fix the link to this .bin file. So if you're watching this video, hopefully that file's out there. And working, where the link sends you to, and you don't have to try and find it like I had to. I do have a copy of it. If you send me an email, hopefully I'll, or put some comments here, I'll be able to, send you that file. I don't really check my YouTube account very much, so anyway. So basically, once you get that .bin file, you need to get it loaded into your Bluetooth BLE module. And what you're going to need is a USB to micro adapter cable, so that it can plug into this micro plug, on the BLE Mini Bluetooth adapter. So, get that cable plugged in. The Bluetooth adapter should power on. Actually, before you plug the cable in, get it ready to be plugged in, and there's a little button on the Bluetooth Mini board. You want to hold that button down, then plug the USB cable in, which will send power to it. Once that happens, it's actually going to open up a hard disk window on your computer, on your Windows computer, which will allow you to look at the files on the Bluetooth Mini adapter. And I think there's only two files out there. One is a .bin file. Delete the bin file, and that window you had opened is going to disappear for a second. It's going to reappear and give you access to this, hard drive again on the Bluetooth Mini. And what you need to do is copy that other .bin file from, that was made to work with the multi-wii configurator software. just copy that to your Bluetooth Mini, hard disk or whatever. And once you do that, that's the hardest part, to get this thing, ready to work. So once that's copied over, you can unplug the USB cable. Make sure your Bluetooth adapter is wired up to your flight controller properly. Put power to the flight controller. If you're using your flight battery, obviously make sure you take your props off to be safe. And then take your iPhone or whatever iOS device you're using with the full multi-week configurator software loaded, and then you're able to connect to your Bluetooth Mini. Even then, that initial connection gave me an error message. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it couldn't really talk to the Naze board. The problem again is the baud rate, the serial port baud rate that I had mentioned initially. The Bluetooth module comes set at 9600 baud rate. It needs to be at 115,200, which is what the Naze board is set to. There's a screen in that configurator which allows you to change the baud rate to 115,2000. You hit the set button, I believe, to sort of save it. And then I think you may have to come back out and disconnect and reconnect one more time. And at that point, it should connect to the Naze board. You should be able to read, the various settings on the Naze board, and then be able to write and make changes to your PID settings or any other settings that are available to you through this multi-week configurator. So hopefully this helps somebody else out there looking to try and get this set up and working with iOS and with your iPhone or iPad. And hopefully it saves you a lot of the frustrations and time that I put into this kind of spinning my wheels. I will tell you one thing I initially tried to do before I had figured this out was to go into baseflight, and when you first get in there, in the top left it just shows the COM port you're connected at, and it does show a baud rate there of 115, 200,000. And I know in baseflight, there is in the command line section a way to change the serial baud rate. And so one of the things I did initially was change that, try to change it on the Naze to 9600 baud in the hope that it would be able to communicate with the Bluetooth module at 9600 baud. Well, that's not a very good idea, because as soon as I did that, I could no longer connect from baseflight with the Naze board, and ended up having to, basically use the bootloader pads on the Naze board to force a firmware reflash, and kind of had to start over and reconfigure the Naze board to get things talking again, and it had to be at the 115, 200,000 baud rate. So don't recommend you do that, because that didn't work for me, and it kind of messed up being able to communicate with the Naze board until I did a complete refresh and reflash using shorting the bootloader pads, following the instructions in the Naze32 manual. So anyway, again, hopefully it'll save you some time and effort and frustration in getting your Bluetooth working with your iOS device. Hopefully this has been helpful.